Hello guys, how are we doing? Welcome back to the channel. Black Ops 7 is around the corner, and a couple of days ago Treyarch released all of the maps coming to multiplayer. Now obviously, as part of our yearly tradition, we're going to be going through each and every single map and looking at whether or not we believe it's going to be comp viable, i.e. are we going to see any of these maps in ranked play, and if so, which ones do we think it's going to be? Now obviously this is pure speculation, and I'm after your input as well. As we go through this, I'm going to be looking at the layout of the map from like a attack map perspective. We're going to be looking at the map from like pictures we've seen, and of course I'm after your opinions as well. Are there any that we're going to be going through today that you think are going to be really strong competitive maps that we might hopefully see in ranked play? Now, obviously, we don't understand where the hard points are going to be or where the S&D bomb spots are, but they are changeable. So we're going to be just, going off of the map alone and what we think. And is it a good, viable, competitive map for Overload, Search and Destroy, and or Hardpoint? So, kick it off with Blackheart. This was actually one of the ones within competitive. Within the demo. It was okay. It was okay. I'm not sure it's going to be big enough for Hardpoint, although you may argue it could be. There's good segregation. So for a Hardpoint map, I feel like you need areas of the map that you can control and areas you can say is a Hardpoint. So for example, especially if you're only going to be having 4 hard hills at a time, you maybe have one sort of in this zone. I'm just going to bin that. That's massive. You sort of have one in this zone. You could have one in this zone, maybe one in like the middle, maybe one here. But there's generally not many places, and maybe I guess you could have one back here. There's a couple of places you could probably have one, and generally, yeah, it was okay. I played it a little bit on Hardpoint in the demo, but it was okay. S&D, however, it was really strong, and I think Overload, it might be a little bit too small for Overload. I feel like Overload, you're going to require slightly wider maps to enable routes, otherwise it's just going to be spawn trap heaven. But S&D for me in this map is a maybe. So now going down to Colossus, this is one we haven't managed to get our hands on yet. This wasn't in the beta, so I'm going off pure speculation. Now, of course, we have another 3-lane map. You can see the 3 lanes, one going through the middle, one going through the left, and one going through the right. There's only a couple of interconnecting points within these lanes, like here. I guess you've got this bit here, and these ones here, and then you've got like the depth at the back here. So lanes are going to be able to be locked down on this map. So I think it's probably going to be a solid hardpoint map. You're going to be able to control spawns relatively easily. It's going to be a little bit old-fashioned Call of Duty feel to this map from what I can see. The map looks okay. It's not massively bright and colourful. It's a little bit too much of that white, clinical, futuristic look that I prefer to see less of. But generally, I think the map itself lends itself very well to Hardpoint and actually S&D. Depends on where the bomb spots are, obviously. In my opinion, for a good S&D map to be competitive, you need a bomb spot positioned towards the defense base. So let's say, for example, this was defense. You'd have one bomb spot sort of back here, and you'd have one which is like a 50-50 fight for, where both teams have just as much chance of getting out than the other. And I would say maybe here, so that both, you'd send maybe one person just to defend this one, and then a couple of. I think if that's the sort of situation we have, S&D could be really fun on this map. Now, obviously, if snipers are allowed in competitive this year, which I hope they are. I hope therefore smokes are as well, to be honest with you. These are lanes that are going to be really easily locked downable with snipers, but it means you're going to have sniper against sniper gameplay, and it means just a little bit more excitement. So again, I'm fairly optimistic about this map. It's solid 3 lanes. There's room for S&D. There's room for plenty of hardpoint locations here as well. I'm somewhat optimistic about Colossus. Now, obviously, we're going to get our hands on the game in less than a week now, so we will see, and maybe I'll do an updated version of this when we get our hands on the map so we can actually run through it. But generally speaking, I'm relatively happy with that. So this moves us on to Cortex, one of the maps that was in the beta. Actually, it was one of my preferred maps in the beta, especially when they fixed the doors, because there was like some automatic doors and whatnot that were a little bit annoying. But generally speaking, I am very happy with how this map played. Now, Hardpoint was fine. Mainly, to be fair, there was a lot of domination, but obviously domination isn't competitive. S&D played okay. There were a couple that I think S&D, the bomb spots are like just down here in this little area here is where you'll find one, which is, if I've got the right area, I think that's about here. And then the other bomb site was, I believe, the other side of the middle, from what I can remember, sort of around here. So it was 2 50-50 bomb sites. So I don't think the bomb sites themselves were massively great. I like to see one a little bit closer to defense, but I think it's solid. You've got somewhat 3 lanes. You've got this really narrow right-hand lane here. You've got this big open left-hand lane, which means it's probably going to have a lot more action than the right. For me, this lane is almost too one-dimensional. You can get into the middle from here, 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 and here. So actually, there are a lot of offerings outside of that lane to enter the middle of the map and get through. So I think this could be generally good. And there's not much clutter, which is something I really like about the map so far. But yeah, this map could be. It depends what else we've got coming. But I'm a little bit hesitant about this map. I think it was probably okay when we were playing pubs, and actually 4v4 probably has really nice hardpoint pacing on this map. So yeah, I think Cortex could be somewhat okay. It's actually better than a lot of comp maps we've had in ranked play in the past couple of years. But yeah, Cortex, I'm holding my opinion on that for now. Now we have Den. Now this is one, as I say, we didn't have in the beta. First of all, I really love the aesthetic, this futuristic Japanese sort of theming. I'm all here for it. It reminds me, I can't remember what the map was called on Black Ops 4, where you had like this sort of oriental looking buildings and those sort of things. I'm excited for this map. It looks really nice, at least from an aesthetic perspective, and there's not as much of this white wall stuff, like futuristic white wall stuff that there's one little window here where you've got that, but I like the map. Now as far as lanes are concerned, there are 3 solid lanes. You've got obviously this one down this left hand side, this one straight down the middle, and this one on the right. So clear lane definition here is apparent, and there does seem to be options to maybe get in the middle at least on 3 points. So there, once you're stuck to a lane, you're pretty stuck. There doesn't seem to be many routes towards the mid lane, other than all the way your side, all the way their side, and in the middle. So I think this is going to be a map which is going to be easily controllable. It looks a bit bigger, some of the other maps we've gone through so far. I think this might be one where that's not a thing anymore. Overload, I believe Overload will be tried on this map. But I think this is a great S&D map. I think from the offset, obviously it does depend on where the bomb sites are, but they can change them. You've got a little bit, what looks like a wall jump here. So I'm assuming, I haven't seen the map, but this red zone here, I believe is probably just nothing below, or it's some sort of red zone that you can't go into. So I think these are going to be areas where you're going to have to jump across, and it's a little bit risque, but maybe there's like a bomb, maybe a bomb site here, and then maybe a bomb site back here, and this is where you'd spawn as defense. Something like that would be really nice. And I think, again, because of its structure and the 3 lanes we have here, and you've got like this middle courtyard area, which if you think of maps that are typically considered competitively strong, Raid being one of them, this is the sort of layout we have. You have the 3 lanes with the middle one being a little bit of a mixy courtyardy area, and I think that's going to lend itself really well to competitive. So Den, I'm optimistic about. Really optimistic about Den. This moves us down to exposure. Now, exposure for me was okay actually. You've got 2 main windows here, and you've got this little circular lift thing that you can see over the whole mini map, the whole middle of the map. It just was okay. Like there was, I don't know whether, again, you do have the 3 defined lanes here, which is really strong, but the way they looked and the way they felt as you played it weren't that great. I think for S&D, which I played a little bit on, it was fine. For hardpoint, it was fine. It was okay. As far as skill gap's concerned, I think there's going to be a solid skill gap on this map because it's such a structured map. There are a lot of like in-betweeny bits. This wall jump here can be annoying at some time, where you might bump into play and then you both fall into the depths of hell or wherever it is, that in that horrible dip. But that area is a little bit mixy. But generally speaking, and I think getting up from this area on the low left side here is a little bit of a nightmare. So once you're there, you either have to commit to go through either this side, or you have to risk jumping up. And it just meant this area just wasn't that great. If you wanted to guarantee your life and spare your life as much as possible, you sort of stayed away from that area just because it was too risky. So exposure, again, it's not one of my favorites, but we'll see. Now we have Express. Now, Express is a throwback. I'm not going to spend too much time on this. This was in, I think the most recent Call of Duty was in was Cold War, and it ended up in ranked play, and it ended up in competitive. I can't say 100%. I am 98% sure that this will end up in competitive map pool. It's great for S&D. You've got a bomb spot here, and a bomb spot here, and defense was here. which meant that you had one on your side of middle and one to contest for. Again, a really good sign of a strong competitive S&D map. You've got one that's easier for you to get to, i.e. this one, and one that's a little bit of a battle. So this was a really solid map. I definitely see this coming into ranked play and competitive. Next, we have Flagship. For me, this looks small. Now, I say that, let's have a look. So you've got this little container thing here, this red box square thing that I'm seeing here. I think you guys can see that as well. Got to go down a couple. This red thing here, I believe that is that. Yeah, I might be mistaken. You've got this upper platform that goes across the map, like so, and I believe that is this. I think. Am I wrong? No, I think I'm right, because you've got the crane here, box here, and that's that and that. Yeah, I think I'm okay. Yeah, I think I'm right. So I think that's that. It's a bit small, is my point. So you've got this area of the map. This is the halfway line, goes across like so, and that is literally the other side of the map. I think it's a bit small. Going to be a really fun pubs match, game mode map thing, I think. You can go under the boat. You can, it's probably going to be fun for pubs, but I will doubt we see this in any sort of competitive just because of how small it is. Hijacked, fun map. Again, for all of the games it's been in, it's never been one that has been in the competitive map set seriously. I think they trialed it a couple times, but it's a small map. Hardpoint doesn't work great on it. There's 2 lanes, you could argue, on this map. One being the top of the middle of the boat. Actually, you've got one underneath, actually, haven't you? So I guess you've got this little out one, and then you've got the one underneath. So I'm not optimistic about this map. I don't think we're going to be seeing it in competitive, especially for how many times it has been in Call of Duty and not made its way in competitive. But generally, fun pubs map. Looking forward to that. Now we have a map called Homestead. So there's a lot of water. All of this is water. And that, for that simple reason, without playing it, without seeing it in action, I don't think it's going to be a competitive map. There's too much you're going to have to keep an eye on. There's too much randomness that you can't control as a competitive player. That's going to leave it up to chance. If someone just takes a deep water route, you're not going to be able to see them. You're going to have to commit 2 people to watch the water. I don't think it's going to be great. Now, that being said, it might be okay for S&D. Now, the reason I say that is because there was a snow map on Vanguard. I can't remember for the life of me what map it was. And initially, it was really strong S&D. It was using CMGs, it was using GBs, and all these sort of competitive sites still ran it. I'd love to remember the name, but it was some sort of snowy map, had some ice on it, but it didn't have water. It's giving me that sort of vibe. I don't think it's going to be massively competitive. S&D, depends on where the bomb spots are and the spawn points are, going to be fine. But I think in any case, no matter what you try and argue, the fact people can get an easy flank to any of these little inputs from being unseen in the water makes it really random and out of control. And I feel like that's a bad sign, or a bad characteristic, a good characteristic of a bad map. Bad, if that makes sense. The water, bad. Now, obviously, it looks beautiful. I love the Aurora Borealis and the Northern Lights, and it looks fantastic. I just don't think it's necessarily here for comp. Maybe Overload. Maybe, yeah, still, you've got the water. That's the trouble. That's the trouble. And the randomness of these rocks, there isn't like set lanes that make it a structured map, a structured flow of traffic in the map and things like that. I'm not optimistic about Homestead, but again, feel free to disagree. Are there points you like about seeing this so far? As I say, it looks wonderful. I'd love to be able to play ranked on this map every so often, but I just don't feel like it's got the layout we need for competitive. We have Imprint. Imprint was in the beta, and I loved it. I loved it for Overload, and I loved it for S&D. Now, for those of you who are unsure, the S&D locations, I believe one was on this outer side, which you can't, it's on this left-hand side of the map. You can't, oh, it was actually here. Just here was one of the bomb spots, just there, which is there. And then the other one, I believe, was literally in the middle of the map, which was in here. So again, there was 2 50-50 bomb sites, which I'm not a fan of. But all it takes is to shift one in a certain direction, or instead of one being right in the middle, like there, you have it over this side or something like that. So you've got one at least in the favor of the defense team rather than both being a 50-50 run race. I enjoyed it on S&D. You've got nice 3-lane maps. The only thing I don't necessarily like is that there's this moving platform that goes from the middle to this left-hand side here, which can go up and down. But I feel like that could be fun. I feel like that could add a little bit of not randomness, a little bit of a skill gap. You could use it as a decoy, for example, if you use the lift down and people are, oh shit, there's someone on the lift and there's not someone on the lift. I feel like that's positive, but I really enjoyed it on SD, and I really enjoyed it on Overload. This was one of the maps I tried on Overload, and I think I did a gameplay on this map itself. I bloody loved it. So I'm hoping I had a good time on it. I'm hoping it's in for that. But again, I think we've got another viable competitive map, at least for some game modes. Nuketown, never going to be in comp. Glad it's back, of course. I think going to be great for camo grinding, those sort of things, but it's not going to be in competitive. And similarly, I don't know what's going on here. And similarly, let's just... I don't think this map's going to be in ranked play. It's tiny. I think it's a 2v2/6v6 map, I believe. And I don't think it's going to be in ranked play. You've got 1 lane-ish with 1 top catwalk thing. Great for gunfight. Great for your real small, chaotic map modes that people love. But definitely not a ranked play map for sure. There, it even says small side here. Now, the next one we have is special, and that's because it is called Raid. Raid is one of the loved maps in Black Ops history. It's brilliant. It was in Control. So when it was in Cold War, which correct me if I'm wrong, it was the last time it was in competitive in a recent Call of Duty. You had Control on it, you had S&D on it, and you had Hardpoint. So I definitely see this as being one of the maps where we have the 3 modes on it. Overload might be an interesting one, but what I'm more conscious about here is that everything looks the same, at least from a layout perspective. They've not faffed around. They haven't reinvented the wheel here. They've just given it a really nice Japanese aesthetic, which makes it look lovely. But Raid is back, and I am very excited. I think this is definitely going to show its face in ranked play in at least one of the game modes we're going to have. Next, we have Retrieval. This could be okay. This could be okay. Now, I know you've got like sort of lanes. You've got 1, 2, 3.5 sort of lanes here, which might make it really fun for Hardpoint. There's a Black Ops 3 map that reminds me of this. Again, my memory's awful. I can't remember it. There's a Black Ops 3 map that looks very reminiscent of this. So it could be okay. For me, I don't think it's structured enough. I don't think... I think S&D might be okay because there are at least lanes you can cut off and you can really use that, but it looks quite tight. I think if you're going to play it for S&D, I think this tunnel route, I think, for example, is this underground bit here, which looks brilliant. But I think for S&D, you're going to want a little bit more room, a little bit more space to move around a bit. And I think there's just too many fiddly lanes. I guess you could sit yourself in a position which looked over a certain lane and you could see whatever it might be, but I'm less optimistic about this, although it would be something a bit different. It's not as structured and therefore might be a little bit more fun. But that is the same reason why I would say it's not necessarily going to be the perfect comp map. And then moving down to Scar, this actually looks okay. So it looks quite small on this map, but if you think this big truck here is actually this truck here, it's quite blooming big. There's a lot of room on this map. I think this could be a really good Hardpoint map. It's got a nice little zigzag structure here, which is reminiscent to some decent Hardpoint maps we've had in the past. There's enough space to have a few Hardpoints. You could have one, P1 would be in the middle, P2 would be one side, P3 would be the other, P4 would be maybe over here, P5 in this corner. You could really make it a good Hardpoint map if you wanted to. So I think this could be in. And similarly, S&D with its size, with the amount of routes and safe spots you have here, and there's some elevation. You can go upstairs. You can go upstairs on this little catwalk area. I think this could be a solid map. Overload is also potential. As I say, there's a lot of room here, but there's a lot of openness. Like this route here looks really open, even though on the map it looks quite small. This looks really open. But again, I'm only seeing a small area of the map. At least it's in a map where there are some chance of it being competitive. We then have Forge. This was in the beta. I wasn't a massive fan on anything. So for me, The S&D bomb spot placements were awful. Hardpoint played miserably, and I don't think Overload is a great map for this. This map's a little bit too narrow for Overload. So for me, I'd be happy not seeing this in competitive, unless they change the bomb spot locations. But yeah, okay, I'm not too amazed by Forge. We then have Toshin. So this was a map that came in the last couple of days of the beta, and I really enjoyed it. It was really fun for S&D. Especially now they've made the change where there was an area of the map where there was a broken a train that sort of seemed like it would lead up to the main train station place. Now they've changed it and they've made it so it is a literal link from the middle of the map to the right hand side. I don't know if it's actually shown here or not, but there was a post saying that they've fixed that. Really happy with that. It makes this right hand lane a lot more viable, but this was a fun S&D map. You've got the middle chaos, you've got the right lane if you want it a little bit more safe. There's a couple of big key buildings each side which you can use as map power. Hardpoint was fun on this as well. Again, I do think it's a little bit too narrow for Overload. I think we're going to need a little bit more width for Overload to have that adaptive play style and enough room to spawn people like to the left and to the right maybe. But yeah, Toshin, S&D Hardpoint, definitely see this, and it looks great as well. So yeah, kudos for them for this. And that's it, actually. I think the last two maps here are the big maps, skirmish maps. There they are. But let me know what you think. I'm very optimistic. There's a bunch of ones I've said there which we could see in Hardpoint and S&D. I think Overload, especially considering it's a new map, we're going to find a little bit more difficult to get maps that are really perfect for it. But as I say, you really, for Overload, you need wide maps. Like Raid, for example, is a nice wide map, because what's going to happen is the spawns don't flip out on Overload. You're going to push in a certain direction, they're going to spawn left. You push in the left, they're going to spawn right. So you need the width of the map so the enemies don't, when you push into their spawn, they don't spawn in the middle of the map. So I'm optimistic. The game looks great from a map perspective. Back to the classic sort of layout. There's not too much mess in areas. You know, it looks really great. I'm optimistic that we're going to have a solid selection of maps for ranked play and competitive. But of course, let me know your thoughts, and I'm interested to see some of your opinions down in the comments below. That'll do for me. Enjoy the rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next one. Ciao for now.